And good morning, everybody. My name is Greg Reffner with Abstract. On our podcast today, we have Richard Harris. He is the Director of Sales Training and Consulting at Sales Hacker and founder of Harris Consulting Group. In my opinion, one of the leaders in the B2B tech world when it comes to sales strategies. And Richard, if you'd like to take a moment to introduce yourself, sir.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you asking me to be on here, and hopefully I can provide some support and knowledge to other folks and, maybe not embarrass myself, which has been known to happen, but I'm okay with that too.
All right. Well, I don't think we have to worry too much about that. I think everything we're going to be talking about today is right in your wheelhouse. So want to first begin with really something that has always stood out to me when it comes to your point of view around things is earning the right to ask the next question. I think in sales and sales training, you're always taught to, ask that second, third level, fourth level question. But oftentimes what's forgotten about is like, how do you earn the right to ask that next question? So I'm really fascinated how that's become your area of focus and kind of your tagline on LinkedIn. How long has this been your area of focus, and how did you decide that this is where you kind of wanted to build your career?
A lot of questions. So let's start with how I wanted to build my career, which is this was never intentional. There was never any intent for me to ever become a business consultant, a sales consultant. I always liked helping other people. Like I always liked training. I was always the rep who's tried to help onboard people and show them the best practices, and actually, the real best practices, not the ones that that your sort of rogue reps try to teach. As a kid, I actually wanted to be a teacher, but I knew that I wouldn't make a lot of money. So I was sort of able to figure out that sales was a little bit like teaching, and I actually love when I find teachers who want to move into sales because I think they're the best at sales, literally the best background for sales. There's a couple others, but I really like that one. And then I just, I had all kinds of sales jobs, and, I was director of sales, VP of sales. I was a sales rep. I was an SDR. I was a full cycle rep, sales manager, sales ops. So I really sort of throughout my career did that. And then 2011, 2012 came along and had this great job with a company called Mashery. They were going to get acquired. At that point, I was in sales ops. They were getting acquired by Intel. Intel didn't need another sales ops guy. So I was probably, one of the easier people to sort of cut. But they did a really nice job. They hugged me out the door, as I said, and made sure that I had plenty of runway to take care of my family and look for the next gig. And so they really did it the right way, which I really, I can't thank them enough. And then people kind of called me and said, hey, could you help? Could you do this? What do you think? And that's sort of how I fell into this. That's how I became a sales trainer.
Nice.
Earning the right to ask questions. Actually, a rep that I had said, we got to earn the right. And so I just sort of kind of thought about it for a long time. And this was before I became a consultant. I was like, that's a really smart idea. And I was like, well, what kind of right are we earning? Right. And I realized it was earning the right to ask the questions. And so that's where I really started to hone in on it. I'd been through Challenger and Sandler and some Miller Hyman stuff, and everybody intends to teach you that. Sandler probably does the best of it. And I just sort of took it and created what I call a respect contract out of it, or sort of adding elements that I felt were missing and teaching it in a way that was teaching the reps how to be respectful to themselves. Because we hear this all the time. We hear sales leaders, walking there with swagger, own the place, you're there, you belong there, it's your time too, just like it. But nobody could ever teach it. And so that's where I really came up with this, where I sort of dug into it, I should say. I wouldn't say I came up with it. I would say I dug into it. Okay. And created this respect contract that I use at every conversation to just sort of acknowledge, here's what we're here for. Here's why we're going to talk. And if it's not going to work, tell me, right? And, literally, I don't want to send you reaching out, checking in, and touching base emails.
Yeah.
And then I'm able to transition that, I think, better than a lot of other methodologies, from that to get the prospect talking by just asking the simple question of what made you come here, right? Like what made you want to have the conversation? Even if they give me a ton of information, even when people say, Richard, I've got a team of, this many AEs and this many SDRs, and we need sales training, we want qualifying and discovery training, we want prospecting training. Well, there's still a reason they want all those things. And I want to know about the reason as much as what their actual wants are. Because oftentimes what they want isn't what they need. And so that's where I'm sort of diving in. So that's the long answer to that question on learning to write. So I hope sorry for the diatribe.
No, I love it. There's actually a couple of things that I would like to expand upon a little bit more. First things first is your background of teachers. When I hire sales reps, one of the things I look for is kind of that different background. I hired a guy who trained Falcons. I've hired people that have done door-to-door internet sales. I've hired teachers. And it's so funny because they're the ones that always far exceed my expectations beyond just the person who is maybe 5 years of successful sales. And so I'm really curious kind of why you see that teacher persona as being somebody who transitions well into sales.
Well, it's super, from my perspective, it's super easy. They know how to take things and explain them in very simple ways, right? They can take what a kid might think is complex and break it down into something simple and walk them through the process. They also understand what a process is. They understand that and I'm literally going back to kindergarten, that they understand the mindset of their customer, the child, and how to navigate them down the path and get them to buy in to do these things, right?
I love it.
Challenge the kid appropriately. And you see this at kindergarten learning the ABCs. You see it in, the first time they start to learn, simple addition, subtraction, multiplication. You see it in going into algebra and geometry and all that kind of stuff. You see it everywhere. And so they're naturally inclined with the desire to know where they're going, lead the conversation in a way that's often not dictatorial, although we have some teachers that are dictatorial, and then let the kid, buy in.
Yeah.
And that's sales. Like that's
Yeah.
it. Like that is, there's no difference in that theory or philosophy than it is selling somebody something, right?
I love that.
Down. You got to connect with those people. You got to earn their right to trust. You got to have a warm personality. You've got to be personable and personal. You've got to understand what a process is. Understand you just can't walk in and tell them to memorize. Although that often does happen, but that's not the intent of the teacher. That's a little bit on the child or the prospect. Mm-hmm. So it all aligns in my mind super well. So the question then becomes, do teachers want to be sellers? Do they thrive on that energy of encouraging people to change their minds? Are they competitive in the sense that they like the challenge? Not that they played a ton of sports, but again, long answer, but hope that was okay.
No, I love it. One of the things that immediately stood out to me was, kind of like helping someone arrive at their own conclusions. I often think of Leonardo DiCaprio's movie Inception, kind of planting ideas in people's minds and helping them get to the place where they think that idea was their own. And I think back at all the teachers I've ever had, they were really good at that. And people that are really successful in sales have a very unique way of helping prospects arrive at conclusions on their own as well. So really, really fascinating point. Getting into the kind of, okay, we've helped identify kind of a persona, what a background might look like. And how do you earn the right to ask that next question? Maybe I'm kind of simplifying your explanation, but it's an upfront contract. You're setting the expectations right up front with somebody. I've noticed on some of your things, you talk about SDRs all the way to like customer success and everybody in between in that life cycle of revenue. An SDR has a much shorter amount of time to earn that trust and earn the right to ask for that meeting than someone at an AE level or even a CSM level. How is the strategy different, or is it different whether you're helping an SDR understand that principle or someone kind of managing a book of business and farming accounts? What's the difference there, or is it the same process?
The process is the same, but there's some tweaks, right? So if I'm a customer success person or account manager where they're already my account, I'm never going to say to someone, hey, look, if it's not a good fit, just tell me and you can walk away,
Yeah,
right?
probably
Like that's
not.
not what you're going to say. But I would say something to the effect of, hey, you know, one of the things I thrive on and appreciate is an honest dialogue. So if ever something's not working or your expectations are not being met, or I'm not giving you proper expectations, please tell me, because it's my job to do all those things. It's my job to support this relationship. And if I fail, then you're going to be unhappy. And I want to know that as fast as possible. I'm obviously going to do my best to not do that, but I've got enough experience that it's not going to happen. But every now and then, if something's not aligned, you need to tell me. And likewise, if I discover that your expectations are not in alignment with what we do, I'm going to find a professional way to share that with you, and then we're going to problem solve it. Right? So it's a little bit longer of a wind up to get to the point, but that's how I would do it there. On the SDR side, it has a lot more to do with earning that right to ask the question, which is, do you want to take a meeting? And for me, the SDR, setting that first appointment is really just an interview. It's not even trying to set the meeting for the salesperson. It's like, hey, I want to interview you and understand how you're tackling these challenges. Would you be open to a conversation? And I'll go so far with SDRs to say, look, it's not a sales call. It's not. We're trying to talk to experts like you, understand where we are in the marketplace and how people are using these, what they're currently doing versus what we offer. Now, naturally, that can turn into a sales conversation. Right? That's up to the AE to then skill that into a sales conversation, right? And so it's a favorite technique that I really like that I learned about a couple of years ago. So I see it working a lot, and it favors the prospect. So for me, earning the right has a lot to do with talking about the pains you solve, not what you do. Right. So when people, and that's my whole earn the right phrase, is that, Richard, what do you do? Oh, I train SDRs, AEs on how to be better salespeople. Bleh, that's terrible,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's horrible, right? That's like everybody else.
yep,
So, but if I say, oh, I teach people how to earn the right to ask questions, which questions to ask and when to do it, there's not any revenue leader with any type of title, C level on down, who cannot immediately picture what that means. And people don't buy the words we say, they buy the pictures we paint. So I have to paint a very clear picture of their pain in relation to what I do. So I'm always trying to talk about their pain, and I'm trying to meet them in their headspace and in their mind to deeply understand where it's coming from. And once I understand that, then I can say, well, hey, let me shift a little bit. Let me explain to you how I might tackle this, and you tell me if you think it's a fit. Right? So that's the ultimate earn the right to ask questions, which questions to ask and when to do it, analogy. So
I love it. I love it. It seems so simple, but it's you look across the board and not too many companies have figured out that it's not about them, it's about the prospect. And everything from your SDR messaging to your marketing, product marketing, sales, everything needs to be in alignment with that. Want to get a little bit into technology. And so companies invest in training, they invest in kind of messaging, they invest in people like you coming in and helping the reps earn the right to ask that next question, really think through what that journey should look like, and then they're deploying technologies to try to measure the effectiveness of that. Um, I looked on G2 Crowd. There's like 200 different sales enablement tools on G2 Crowd. So there's definitely not a problem in finding technology to help measure the effectiveness of the investment in these strategies. Um, I'm really curious to understand from your perspective, like what we have like this void, I feel like, where we have technology, we have strategy, sales leadership, we have frontline worker. Where does technology in your mind fit into this? And then a second part to that question is like, are we trying to force a fit with technology? Like, are we trying to do too much with technology and kind of
well,
repeatable process?
that's a really good question. And there does become this tech overload, right? And I do think that you're starting to see more alignment and acquisition of some players by larger players or those who want to be larger players to make it one platform. The issue to me is that it's got too many platforms to go through. Now, each one is absolutely meaningful, right? Whether it's SalesLoft or Outreach or VanillaSoft, whether it's Vidyard or BombBomb, right? All those things align. I think the challenge just becomes sort of like, how do I get them all in one place? And I think SalesLoft and Outreach and VanillaSoft, they've all done a good job to integrate these additional pieces. But there is a place where you have to recognize that most of these tools, and I'd love someone to call me out on this. Someone please email me, Richard at rharris415, Richard at rharris415. Tell me if I'm wrong. Most of these tools accelerate the value of a meeting, right? That's it. Whether it's a first meeting, second meeting, third meeting, whatever it is, that's what they do. However, unless you're in the self-serve mode, if you're training the reps how to have these better conversations and teaching them how to earn the right to ask questions, which questions to ask, and to stop talking about what you do and start talking about the pains you solve in relation to the customer or the prospect, if you aren't doing that, all you're really doing is accelerating the suck. Right? And that, again, not a phrase I came up with. They came up with my friends over at Connect and Sell, where it's like, look, we can build a great dialer, which they have, but if you can't teach people how to talk on the phone, you're just accelerating the suck, and then you're burning runway, right? Like you've only got a TAM of so large. Even if your TAM is 100,000 people or 100,000 organizations, you still only got 100,000, right? Like that's it. Yeah. So you got to look at the short-term versus the long-term gains, and the challenge there is Silicon Valley, particularly, but not just there. I work with a lot of larger organizations that are not mainstream or SaaS players, and everybody's just trying to push revenue, right? And you're chasing the revenue dragon, as I call it, and you make a lot of mistakes if you try to tame the dragon in the wrong way, right? You can't tame a dragon quickly. Like it does not happen, right? Even even all the way back to Game of Thrones, right? It took her a while to tame those dragons, and even then, sometimes the dragons had a mind of their own. So I'll pause there. But I think the biggest challenge on the technology side is that recognizing what it will do and what it won't do. The technology has yet to actually, I can't say improve the conversation, because Gong and Chorus and Exec Vision are out there, and they are working to teach the reps. But again, that technology is those are the one or two technologies I see that are actually teaching you how to not accelerate the suck, how to improve so that you don't suck. Yeah. But even then, you still have to have the human element of either the acceptance of the rep to be self-coached through those tools and get better, or the manager and leaders to coach the team on how to get better based on those outcomes. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you actually read Game of Thrones, by the way?
No, I have not, but it's sort of on the to-do list. I'm for this year, I've read a couple of business books. I read a couple of the books around systemic racism. I've been trying to educate myself more in that realm. And then since then, I took a really light approach. Actually, the book I'm reading right now, which is absolutely one of the best business books I've ever read, is Matthew McConaughey's autobiography. It's amazingly hysterical, but he talks about growth, and his whole purpose of the book isn't the stories he tells. It's like, how do those stories shape the person and shape the individual through growth? He had a Texas upbringing, right? He had a mom and dad who he got a whooping, as he said, right? He got the belt, right? And he's not advocating for that. Like, he's not saying that's how he's raising his children, because I don't think he is. But it did instill certain things about how he needed to adjust his mindset, and I appreciate that. So I really like that book. So if you're looking for an interesting book that's completely outside the business world but will improve you, this is one of them.
Love it. Love it. I wrote that down. I didn't know he had an autobiography out, so I appreciate that.
It just came out a couple of weeks ago. I just heard about it.
Okay. Yeah. If I'm on book 2 of Game of Thrones.
How do you like it?
It's so painfully long.
My question is it written like Shakespeare or is it written like in common language?
It's common language, like it's an easy read. It's just, I think the first book's like 800 pages, and I pulled
Right.
out the second book and I was like 960 pages. Like,
Yeah, but
oh,
and granted, I was never that kid, but if you were a Harry Potter fan, that seems about normal.
yeah. I usually read those books in about a day. I don't think I slept when Harry Potter books came out. So,
Never actually
anyways,
read them. I was a generation too old for those.
no. I think anybody can read Harry Potter. But anyways, getting back on track. So, um, I want to make sure we wrap this up pretty soon and keep to our time so we don't lose our listeners. But when we think about when you go into an organization, Richard, and you're starting to kind of do some analysis and start to piece together, okay, what's our messaging? Where's technology fit? Um, where's sales leadership's head at in terms of messaging that we need to teach everybody? I would love to know maybe what your biggest piece of advice is for companies looking to use technology.
It all comes down to the pain you solve, right? So I'll ask companies all the time. I will say, "What do you do?" Right? And they'll tell me, and I'll say, "Great. What do you? What pain do you solve?" And even when I say that, they still go back to what they do. So this is what we do. I'm like, no. Don't tell me what you do. Tell me what pain you solve. Paint me that picture, right? Pretend you couldn't actually give a demo. Pretend you had to give a demo without the computer, which I've done back in the day, right? Like you didn't always have this crutch, right? Where you have a PowerPoint and your logo salad and you're trying to impress people with your VCs, which is all horseshit and, should go to the end of your slide deck, not the beginning, right? That's the first thing I'll tell people. It matters, but not as much as you think it does. Talk about the pain you solve. Don't talk about the problem. Talk about the pain. If I'm talking to a VP of sales, what made you want to have this conversation? Well, we got this many people and we want no. I got it. Like that's normal. What's making you have this conversation? What pain do you solve? Right? Oh, well, we solved this pain for our customer. I'm like, great. Where is that in your collateral? And it's nowhere.
Yeah.
It's nowhere there. Like if you remember old trade shows, you'd walk by, right? At every booth, literally, and I would just tell people, I just want you to put up there, I don't care if you write it on a poster board, we solve this pain. I promise you more people will stop and read it. And they'll be like, oh, and you could say, do you have that pain? What pain do you have? And then you have a conversation. Not, hey, we make your team more agile and da-da-da-da-da-da, right? So,
And it's like a qualification, like, oh, you don't have this pain? Okay, we're not for you. Oh, you have this
yeah,
pain? We are for you.
yeah. It's almost like the opposite of feature benefits. Here's the feature, here's the benefit. No, talk about the benefit. And the benefit is the pain. So benefits, then your features.
Got it. I love it. I love it. Well, as we get close to wrapping up our time together, Richard, I really am taking away 3 things from this conversation. The number one thing that I really wasn't expecting to take away from this conversation was a background of kind of what type of person makes up a good sales rep. We talked about teachers, and as you dove into why a teacher persona makes a potentially good salesperson, it instantly like a light bulb went off of my head. Like, I'm gonna put this as a requirement on my next my job description I push out. Like, have you ever taught anything before in your entire life?
Yeah.
And it really gets down to they're good at explaining process and helping people think through ways to get to that conclusion on their own. Second thing, don't accelerate the suck, right? If we can get a bunch of meetings on the calendar, great. But if we don't know how to talk in those meetings, that's a problem. So we need to teach conversations. And then the third is talk about the pain you solve, not what you do, right? Maybe we need to think about that, not just from a sales perspective, but marketing, product marketing, product engine.
As much as I want to, you can't blame product marketing and marketing. No one's told them that they should look at it this way. And I think their intent is to do that, but they sort of get caught up in this marketing belief system, which is fine. But yeah, product marketing needs to get better at that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Well, those are my three big takeaways from our time together, Richard. For anybody who wants to get in touch with you or learn more, what are some good ways to get in touch with you, sir?
Yeah, easy as LinkedIn, right? You can my handle everywhere is rharris415, RHARRIS 415. I'm super crazy. Here's my cell phone number, 415-596-9149, 415-596-9149. Text me, call me, and then Richard at rharris415 is .com is my email address. So connect with me. Happy to chat. I'm happy to have conversations. They don't necessarily have to turn into business opportunities. I believe in putting good karma out there in the world, so I'm happy to do that, and the business will find you. Like, that's how you don't accelerate the suck.
I love it. I love it. Well, I appreciate our time together, sir. Is there any final thing you'd like to add before we wrap up today?
Tell me about this painting behind you, even though people are just listening.
Oh, yeah. So in my my free time, I like to actually paint, and it's a Starry Night rendition, and it's an oil on canvas. So it's kind of for people who don't really know me, I'm kind of an introvert, which shocks most people when they find out I've spent the past 7 years in sales. But I find my energy kind of um, in
I ask because it aligns with how I teach surface paintings versus core paintings. Like, I literally draw a picture of the earth. You have the crust, and then the mantle, then you have the outer core and the inner core, and the inner core is where that core pain is real pain, right? And so that's what made me ask about it. So it aligns very nicely with some philosophies of mine, which is clearly, this is why we're going to be best buddies.
I love it. I love it. This went way better than I ever could have hoped, Richard. I appreciate it, sir. And
Awesome.
thank you again for your time. We'll talk soon.
Let's do it again. Thanks,
Bye.
Greg. Appreciate you
Bye.
having me.
Thank you. Bye.